Good evening, all. Good evening. We'll kick off here in a moment. Excuse me. This weather change, I'll tell you the truth. Share this out. Obviously, this is a hot topic, at least when you say the name Will Smith, that Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock. Those names are certainly all a buzz. If you watched any of my Let's Chat, you should anticipate that I'm not likely to go where you assume I'm going to go. But share this out. Get this in front of as many people as you can. And some people are probably already just tired of those names, tired of the conversations. You know, and I understand that as well. I would normally already be over stuff like this, but I think this is a interesting opportunity to really make some points that I've actually made before on the Let's Chat broadcast. But I want to use, and I'm saying that directly, very plainly. I'm not being shy about it. I want to use this flashpoint moment, as many have been calling it, to really kind of make some points I have made on a broadcast. I've done a broadcast about apologies and all those types of things in the recent past, but I really want to go back to it and use this. Now, we already know, some of you have probably looked at, read. I'm not on Twitter. I was on it years ago and was busy, couldn't keep up with the constant, because Twitter is constant. People are constantly talking and saying things. I just couldn't keep up. So wasn't no way I was going to try to keep up with Twitter. I'm even busier now than I was then. But Instagram, Twitter, all those things are what they are. But he did offer an apology to Chris via social media, a typed apology. That's fine. I'm not here to discuss the method of transmission. I leave that to other people to say whether or not it should have been spoken or face to face. I leave that to other people to make those kind of judgments about others. And I said it exactly the way I meant to say it. Those to judge how things should be said and what means of transmission. He did make a public apology at the Oscars to the Academy at large. So an apology has already been given. So it's already after 9. Let me make a few very important statements. Now, some who may join later will have missed this, and so they may comment having missed the context that I'm going to lay down right now. So first of all, an apology has already been given. So this is not a matter of trying to figure out should or shouldn't an apology happen. Let's be clear here. None of us were in the event, so we really need to be mum about whether or not the people in the event should do certain things. And I understand that we live in a time where, because of platforms like this, we can give our opinion as to whether or not people should or shouldn't do. I'm going to address that in a sense, but let me just be clear. We were not, and obviously, unless you're a celebrity, good evening to you, you can't be in that space. And if you are a celebrity, hey, nice to have you tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the Oscars. So it's not whether or not an apology should happen, because it's already happened. And I think a lot of times we need to take it easy on giving our assertions about people doing things. And here's where I want to lay down the foundation for what I'm going to talk about tonight in light of an apology. Because this is not necessarily about Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, entanglements, Chris Rock, comedy skills, I don't like him. I've read some stuff on Facebook from people that I consider to be friends. Some I've met in person and know a little bit more than just Facebook, obviously. Not everybody on Facebook is just somebody I've never met in person, since I got family on here. But I did read some posts that particular night No, sorry. Was it that night? Yeah, that night, as a matter of fact, which was disheartening at best. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So let's be clear about something. An apology did take place. And I'm here to talk about why I agree that it should have taken place. And I agree that the person who did it is the one who should have done it. But we have to ask ourselves, and I've done a broadcast on this, but I want to use this flashpoint to make this statement again. We have to ask ourselves, for all of us who have you may not have shared your opinion in any platform, including people at your job. You may not have talked about it at all. You've heard about it, had a thought, and that's why I want to talk about it. Because you had a thought, and I've had a thought, and obviously I've had more than a thought. Here's the question we have to ask ourselves, and so did those individuals sitting there that night, the 15 million people who were watching, and of course, the 2 or technically 3 individuals who were involved. When we are assessing or judging a situation, what is the moral basis for our assessment? What is the moral foundations? See, I'm already saying what you haven't heard. I'm already saying, I know you haven't heard this. I've watched comedians, fellow comedians of Chris Rock, people that I'm familiar with, because I used to be a bit of a comedian buff, comedy buff. People in the acting industry, people in the sports industry, people on the basis of the shared ethnicity and culture basis. Christians, of course, have chimed in. And I've only heard maybe 1 or 2 people pose this situation slightly different than I'm doing it, but I like to get right to it. When we are looking at the things that happen in society, because we have a whole war going on, what is the basis? What is the foundation on which we are making our assessments? What is the foundation? Now, clearly, this interaction between Will Smith and Chris Rock is nothing to be compared to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. But the fact is, because it involves human beings, it allows us to draw some small semblance of comparison, because we have to ask ourselves, what is the moral basis? That's not exciting. That's not popping. I'm not here to talk about chivalry and all of it. We're going to get into some of that, but that's not the gist. Here's the foundation. The foundation is, what did I and what do you assess what you see on social media and on TV, in the news, and whatever platform that you find this information comes to you? What is the moral foundation? If I was a bit older, I might say your moral compass. Which way is it pointing? Because before we get into whether or not an apology was given and the reasons why we think it happened and all of this kind of thing, we have to ask ourselves before we make any statement. Now, of course, we're way past making statements. What is the basis on which we are making our judgment? What is the moral stance, or the foundation on which we're taking our moral stance? I want to be clear. That's what's driving this broadcast tonight. And again, I suspect you haven't necessarily heard a whole lot of people asking that question or answering the question in their assessment on whether or not what went down should have went down and how it went down. Because if we start there with what's the moral basis, if you say the moral basis is I feel, let me ask this question. Stay with me. Why is it that your feeling about the thing is the foundation? And is that foundation sure enough and firm enough? Well, Gabe, I don't have to care. But you drew a conclusion. You had a feeling. You had a sentiment. You had an opinion. So whether you shared it with anyone or not, do you understand what I'm getting at? Do you understand what my concern is? My concern is that I live in a society. I don't live by myself. I live with you. You live with me. Now, not specifically, you may live in another city, another state, You may live in a place in the area and I just don't know you necessarily directly and never met you. But the reality of it is the question still remains. If the foundation for drawing conclusions about things such as what happened at the Oscars is me, I have to ask myself, am I a firm enough foundation for which to make judgments about what I see? Because a lot of times what I discover is many of us have sliding scales in our judgments. What we like to call in sports, moving the goalposts. And this is where, when I read through some of the Facebook postings, I was unfortunately disturbed. I got to do this. I know Thursdays are not about necessarily being Christian, but let me do this. I read across one young, and she may be watching, I don't know, I'm not obviously going to say any names. I read across one young lady whom I have met in person years ago, who stated one of the things that why she didn't particularly like what went down, not so much from Will Smith's perspective, but quote unquote Chris Rock's perspective, is because she doesn't like Chris Rock. And she's already done with Chris Rock. Another thing that was said as I read through and through the comments is somebody ought to stand up for Black women. Now, this is an extraordinarily intelligent young woman. I say young, we're relatively around the same age. Extraordinarily intelligent young woman. The conversations I recall having with her years ago said that the job she works, obviously I'm not going to say, tells us that. And yet, as I read that, I said, okay, first of all, if you're saying that what Will Smith, say with me now, what Will Smith did was protect Black women by protecting his wife, then you are, whether you wanted to or not, suggesting that Jada Pinkett Smith is representative of Black women. So let me ask if there's any Black women who so happen to be watching, and I was raised in a home with Black women. I was in a relationship with a Black woman by choice. I married her, as well as I have a sister and aunties and cousins and a niece who are all Black women, who all have the hair stuff in one level or another and have dealt with being judged by their hair. I understand that's one of the narratives here. So understand, I am keenly aware of some of those narratives, including sicknesses. I'll get to that in a minute. Having been married to someone with dealing with chronic pains and things of that nature, and the impact it has on their presentation. So I so happen to be a person in a position to be able to make a conversation about this. I'm not married to Jada, clearly, because then her last name wouldn't be Smith. But I can say some things. Okay, so let me ask the question again to all my African American sisters and mothers and grandmothers and nieces and aunties out there. Given what you know publicly, whether you watch the Red Table or not, just in the last 5 years, would you really want to say that Jada Pinkett Smith represents African American women in general? I'm just asking the question. Would you really want to go out on that limb and state that you believe that Jada Pinkett Smith is a good, solid representation of African American women? Her economic, if somebody says something about hater, I'm telling you now, y'all get on my nerves. Her economic situation is not average, so she definitely doesn't represent the average African American woman. The average African American woman from a religious standpoint does not agree with Jada Pinkett Smith, statistically speaking. I live in the South, keep that in mind. I'm from California, so I have a unique perspective in that respect. But if the average African American woman I know has a spiritual disposition that would not allow for entanglements, that would not allow for open marriages, that would not allow for raising children in the manner in which she has done. So let me say this safely, and if you don't like it, check me on it. My mother and sister are on my Facebook page. Go ask them. I suspect that Jada Pinkett Smith is not representative of them as Black women. Period. You can try to get down to hair if you want to. You can try to get down to those things if you want to, so that you can try to make it work. This is what I just asked. What is the moral foundation? The moral foundation for which we judge whether or not a situation requires or should merit an apology or not, or should have happened in any way, cannot be things like hair. And even sickness to some, and I'm going to show you why and how in a minute. So to this individual who is an African-American female who said, yeah, at least somebody is standing up for black women, because no one is standing up for, first of all, that's a generality, I can't not say that word. That is being general in a way that is not true. The notion that no one is standing up for black women is nonsense. It's nonsense. And if they were pressed on that point, they would have to admit it, because no one standing up for black women means black women are not standing up for black women. Well, okay, maybe she meant men. Okay, are you serious? So no men, and if you meant black men, no black men are advocating for black women? Not happening? Okay, really? Are you paying attention? Tyler Perry. I'm just going to throw out a name. Tyler Perry has been extraordinarily influential in empowering black women, almost exclusively. And if you just want a black woman to go along with him, Oprah Winfrey. So don't tell me that there are not examples of a black man and a black woman who are not advocating for, oh, you need another one? How about LeBron James? You gotta follow the man. You gotta catch up with what's going on with him, not just basketball and the Los Angeles Lakers and shoes and movies. No, this man has advocated, being the product of a single parent home and his mother raising him, he has advocated for black women. And on and on and on. And just because you don't have a laundry list of people who advocate for blacks as well as black women doesn't mean all of a sudden now this particular situation is a black man advocating for a black woman. I don't think her blackness had anything to do with it, given that the comedian was black. So the whole statement falls apart because this was not a white man or woman standing up there making a comment about a black woman and therefore a black man defending her. No, this was a black man making a comment about a black woman and her husband, not because he's black, but because he's her husband. So that whole thing fell apart. But this is just an example of what I'm trying to tell you, that we are sitting back in our lives and we are assessing things. But my challenge again, and my question is again, what is the moral disposition? What is the foundation for which we are drawing these conclusions? Okay, let's move away from the black man, black woman, protect black women, and all of this kind of thing. Let's move to the Chris Rock piece. Oh, I can't wait for this. So for the Chris Rock piece, for all the people who don't like Chris Rock, that's fine. Oh yes, there's plenty. That's fine. You don't like Chris Rock, that's fine. Now, ask yourself this question, because I did immediately. And I guarantee you, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith would answer the question exactly like I'm going to answer it. Has anyone noticed in about 20 years, and I don't even watch the Oscars, I watch highlights because you can't get away from it. It's on the news, it's on late night television. I watch Conan and I used to watch Conan O'Brien, and it went to Jimmy Kimmel and all of these people. I frequent those now on YouTube, but I used to watch them on TV, right? So here's the thing you got to ask yourself, and I did immediately. What type of comedian is Chris Rock? Not his color. What type of comedian is he? Now, for those of you who are not comedy buffs, and I won't say I'm a comedy buff, but who are not comedy buffs, let me give you some insight. Chris Rock borders on what we call a observational comic. Let me throw you some other names. Dave Chappelle. Okay. And of course, you have the white men and women. You have the Hispanic men and women. George Lopez. These people are observational comics. In other words, their comedy comes from their observations about life, things around them, like somebody not having hair or somebody having a receding hairline. Stay with me. Because there is a female who has been given the opportunity to host the Oscars. Her name is Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg is an old school observational comic. Her comedy was and is, I don't think she's still doing it anymore, was born out of making observations, political, black women. She would make observational comments. And she was one of the main hosts for a long time of the Oscars. And Whoopi could occasionally find herself as being categorized as an insult comic, not necessarily on a constant. Oh, so you didn't expect this kind of logic, did you? Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, and many of their white Hispanic counterparts, George Lopez and otherwise, are occasionally fall into the, I say occasionally, but probably more often than not, also fall under the category of insult comics. I'm going somewhere, stay with me now. Now watch this contrast that most of you probably have never paid attention to. When you watch the Oscars, that night is the pinnacle of the actors and producers and directors and movie score people. It's their night. It's the top night of all nights out of 365 days. That's their night. They put on $1,000 tuxedos and $5,000, $10,000 gowns and buy or rent, believe it or not, $20,000 pieces of jewelry and drive up in limousines that cost more than I'll ever make in a lifetime. And so the producers of the Oscars, not just the African-American gentleman this one time, but for the last 20 years, have had an insult comic host. Oh, think about what I'm saying. An insult comic host the pinnacle night for all these people in that industry. So the question I ask myself is, why? Because Chris has hosted a few times, but there's a lady who is black who is also hosted that's not as old as Whoopi. Her name is Wanda Sykes. Her name is Wanda Sykes. She was standing on that stage and made comments about things like LeBron James's hairline in Space Jam 2. And other comments I won't get into sitting here. So these comics are asked to host this night. They stand in contrast. In other words, the comedy of these particular comedians is meant to be a contrast. On the night in which you're celebrating these actors and actresses and filmmakers and directors and producers, you bring in essentially insult comics who will make light in some sense of the night as your entertainment. Now, whether you've ever thought about that or not, roll back in your head. What is the reason for getting a Chris Rock and Wanda Sykes, Whoopi Goldberg, and Bill Maher, or whoever? What's the point? When you know that they have a tendency to make light of the very people in their audience. That is not an accident. That is done on purpose. And Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith know that that's exactly how it goes down. And unless there's somebody going to get on here and tell me, yeah, but Gabe, they're giving certain people in the audience they're not allowed to make fun of, I've never heard that. If there is, you give me the list. You tell me. But Wanda Sykes, Chris Rock, and the like, when they go on there to host, they take shots at just about everything and everybody up in there. Now, while they are not permitted to make racist comments, they are not permitted to make slanderous, liable comments. I think most of us, if we heard what Chris Rock said, would agree that his words, whether you want to believe they were made in poor taste or not, were not liable, they were not slanderous. And in fact, guess this, watch this, he was actually up there doing the job they hired him to do. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm gonna take it where you don't. I'm gonna go where you didn't see it going. Listen to what I'm saying. Chris Rock was up there to do a job, and his job he was hired for, much like you and I. He was hired because he's one of the best at the type of job he does. Are you seeing where I'm going? And what is he good at doing? Making light of the people sitting in the audience. He's extremely good at it. Wow. So there you go. So understand, Chris Rock, Wanda Sykes, and all the rest of those comedians are hired to come to the glitzy, glamorous Oscars to make fun of the people in the audience. That's what they're hired to do. So take a minute to get over yourself about Chris Rock and you don't like him and this, that, and the other, and breathe for a second, because your feelings about Chris Rock ain't no more consequential than your feelings about the person working behind the counter at Subway. I don't have to like the man working the counter at Subway. I don't have to like the waitress bringing me my food. I don't have to like the doctor who saw me at the hospital over a week ago. I just need to receive from them, or I expect to receive from them, the service that they're being paid to render. And I expect to receive from Chris Rock the service that he was being paid to render. So you have to understand. Well, see, here's my problem, Heather. Did Chris Rock make fun of her medical issues and disabilities? See, let's get to it. I'm trying to set the stage, but if you want to get to it, let's get to it. Did Chris Rock make fun of her disability or medical issue? No. He made fun of her head. And just because we so happen to know that that was the situation, then yeah, exactly. But if you're going to disagree, you have to ask yourself why. What's your stance? Well, my stance is I know what her situation is. And because I know what her situation is, I felt like he was making fun of that. But you're generalizing. He did not actually make fun of her sickness. And if you do your quick research, he actually admits he didn't even know. See, here's the problem with celebrities. We assume that what we know about celebrities, everybody knows. I didn't know she had a sickness either, because I don't watch Red Table. See? So he got generalized on because some of us so happen to know what her medical situation was. The other years that he's made fun of people, do you think Chris Rock was up digging into people's lives before he decided what he would make fun of? No. Do you think the comedian who's standing on the stage and sees men and women sitting in front of them have went and got on their Twitter pages and got on all those things and did all this research so that they can make poignant statements? A comedian's job is to be funny. And as I've already laid out, and I don't think anybody can disagree, that Wanda Sykes, Chris Rock, and all the rest of those comedians are hired to make fun of what they see in front of them. Chris Rock did not know her medical condition, just like the other millions of people did not know it. And the notion that she's such a celebrity that everybody would know her medical condition, I promise you, more people know her medical condition Monday than knew it Sunday. The people who are throwing the biggest fit are the people who so happen to know what her medical condition is. So we cannot lay at a person's feet. Again, when I go into Subway, I'm there to be served. I don't know if the man or woman behind the counter has cancer, diabetes, has a learning disability. They got hired. That's what their job is to be. And they're not as good of friends as you believe. See, we have to be careful to understand they're not that good of friends. In fact, if you do your research, which ain't that hard, come 2016, when they tried to get Chris Rock not to go to the Oscars, he told them, I'm going to the Oscars. And when he went to the Oscars that night to make fun, he made fun of them then. They wanted him to boycott the Oscars. See? 2016. They wanted him to boycott the Oscars because they felt like Will Smith should have got an award, I believe, for Ali or whatever the movie was. And Will Smith said no. Why? Because, Chris Rock said no. So notice then, Chris Rock is his own man. See, that's why I asked the question in the beginning. What is the moral stance you're taking? Is it, I'm turning my corner now. Is it an objective standard by which everyone should be measured? Because I hate to say this, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, Heather, but the fact is there are some people who don't have a problem with making fun of disabilities. And guess what? I can go right now and go to what's called Dry Bar Comedy and post that video of a man standing there making fun of disabilities. And you know why you would laugh? Because guess what? He's the one with the disability. So if we make a blanket statement that you cannot make fun of disabilities, that means the man with a disability cannot make fun of disabilities. Because if the standard is you cannot make fun of people with disabilities, then you cannot, whether you have the disability or not, make fun of it. We cannot set a standard and assume because we feel that way, it is true for everybody. We can't do it. There are people who are plus size people who make fun of fat all the time. Yeah, I said the word because that's the word they make. Now, I am told working with mental health, and when I worked as a teacher in the special education department, we were no longer to use the word retarded. And yet the word retarded was used more by people with special needs than I could ever have imagined to use it. So you sit there trying to be, oh, here we go, politically correct, and you realize Chris Rock, Wanda Sykes, and such the like were not hired and are not hired to be politically correct. They are literally hired to not be politically correct. That's why you hire them, because you know they are willing to say what no one else is willing to say. That's the point of a Chris Rock and a Wanda Sykes. That's the point of a Whoopi Goldberg. That's the point of a Billy Crystal. That's the point of a Robin Williams. That's the point of a George Carlin. They, Red Fox, Richard Pryor. That's the point. They will say, Eddie Murphy, they will say what people are thinking on the night when supposedly nobody's supposed to say it. And the fact is, whether we like it or not, now let's get to the apology, Will Smith laughed. Now, all of my psychology friends, and I'm saying that in a general sense, not specifically my people who don't have psychology background, wanted to say he was laughing from a place of pain. We can never know what's in a man's mind and heart. And as a man, don't ever do that. I hate when people try to tell me what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. Well, see, look at that. The way his face crinkled, he wasn't really laughing because it was funny. He was laughing from a place of pain. See, come on. And then his apology told you, see, he's a man in pain. Yeah, pain. He's a man who just went up and assaulted a man. Oh, by the way, that's assault. That's assault. I don't care how you cut it, that's assault. So let me do this first before we get to the apology. For those of you who consider what he did to be defending his wife, let me ask you this question. Are you suggesting that Chris Rock's words were so to the point because of a condition he didn't know she had? His words, though he made fun of several people and several circumstances, his words specifically to her were actually an accosting. In other words, that him making fun of her head was equal to him walking up to her and physically accosting her. Think about what you mean when you say defend. I don't even think we think this stuff through. So Will Smith was defending her. He was defending her. That's what you said. So he was defending her against an attack. Was she being attacked? Are you sure, those of you who believe in the freedom of speech, that you want to say that what Chris Rock said was an actual assault? And if you want to say that what Chris Rock said was an assault, I want you to stop for a second and think about it. You might want to start checking 90% of what you say, even in your own mind. Because the moment you make a comment towards, let's say, a waiter or a waitress who does not quite get your order, excuse me, ma'am, unless you're being extremely precise in your words. If you make some statement about, oh man, I can't stand when restaurants don't get paid, hold on, because that waiter, that cook could take that as an assault. Do you understand that what you're saying is that entire industry of comedy, which is why I understood why many of the comedians took the stance that they took. You're going to mess up their money. Chris Rock was doing a job. And are you prepared, ladies and gentlemen? See, stop thinking about Will Smith and Chris Rock and Jada for a second. Do you understand? I'm standing in Walmart hearing those employees talk about things. If I'm as sensitive as some of you are, those people are losing their jobs every 5 seconds. I'm telling you right now. Because some of the conversations, and there are probably some conversations that's truly inappropriate, but I'm in there for a purpose. I fulfill my purpose and I get out. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith and Chris Rock was there for a purpose. Chris Rock was fulfilling his purpose. Will Smith, when he got his award, fulfilled his purpose. But when he walked up on that stage, his purpose was not to, quote, protect his wife. From what? Comedy? Well, Gabe, I didn't think it was funny. Okay, you have a right to your feeling about whether or not you thought it was funny. And here's how you respond if you don't think something is funny. I do it all the time. I show those comedians how I feel. Even when I'm sitting in my living room watching a movie, and if a part was supposed to be funny and I don't think it's funny, I shut my mouth. I don't even smile. I just let the moment pass. Yeah, but Gabe, what if it was your wife? Oh, I'm coming to you because I know you burning to hear my answer. The reality of it is there was no assault in the man's words. None. And in fact, if you just know your movie history, G.I. Jane, with her bald head, was considered to be a woman of power who fought against all odds. And in fact, he actually likened her to one of the most noted figures, even if the movie was of no consequence, but the G.I. Jane character was of a position where she was in a male-dominated space and she overcame. Now, I don't think Chris Rock meant to do that. He was just making a movie reference with an actress. But if you know your history, your movie history, G.I. Jane was actually a compliment from a movie standpoint because G.I. Jane was a heroine in the movie. See, when we don't think things through, when we don't stop for a minute and let our emotions subside enough to consider. See, Will Smith epitomized what happens when we don't let our emotions subside. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The reality of it is there are a lot of comedians who offend a lot of people and have since comedy has existed. Let me go one more step. There's a lot of music out there. You can go to a situation and hear somebody singing, and then they come across, they put out a song, and you just kind of cringe because it offends you. It offends your moral compass. It offends your sensibility. There's artists I like, but there are songs that they sing I don't like, and I turn them off. Or I let the song move on, and then I go on about my business. Yeah, but Gabe, no. Unless you're willing to make Jada Pinkett Smith greater than me. And if you are, why the crap are you on my Facebook page or YouTube page? Be gone with you. If you think she's better than me because she has a sickness, what am I dealing with? Are you going to make a celebrity better than me? Shame on you. Be gone with you. Because she ain't better than me. She ain't better than me because she's got a sickness. Because the people I know with the kind of sicknesses she got don't have the money she has to take care of themselves the way she can. And I'm not hating on it. She's earned that money. She's an actress, a noted actress who has done well in her career, on top of marrying a man who has also done well. So I'm not hating, but don't ever dare suggest because somebody is your favorite actress or actor, they're better than me. On what day? In what way? In what way? See, we have to be careful because when we're looking at celebrity, we go too far and we use our view of celebrity as a way. This is why I keep asking the question to really promote our moral disposition. See, most of us have a sliding scale of morality, and we don't really let anybody know what it is until situations come up, politics or whatever the case may be. Here, you want to know? Critical race theory. Got you. Half of us don't even know what the heck that is. And we got all kind of opinions about it. All kind of opinions. We had a president of these United States who literally said to extremely intelligent women of different ethnic backgrounds, you need to go back to your country, those blank hole countries. And 74 million Americans voted for that man. That man referred to a league called the NFL, which is about 70 to 85% African American, as a bunch of dumb blah, blah, blahs. And 74 million Americans voted for him. So don't give me your sense and sensibility about, well, Chris Rock doing his job, which is to stand up there and make fun of the audience, is somehow worse than the president of the United States who sits there and calls women of color all kinds of names, and 74 million people vote for him. He calls a league that is almost exclusively African American, a bunch of blah, blah, blahs, and 74 million people vote for him. Excuse me if you're not going to get any sympathy with me. Because this country's got sliding scales of morality, and we get to pick and choose what we consider to be important and what we don't consider to be important. And when we don't want a woman to be important, we'll slide the scale. And when we don't want a man to be important, we'll slide the scale. And when we don't want to give nothing and do nothing for children, we'll slide the scale. Well, she's sick, Gabe. A lot of people in that audience are sick. We don't know their business. We're not all in their lives, just like they don't know my business. So the reality of it is, the reality of it is, this is the country I live in. And if you're watching I do have people from other countries, y'all might feel the same way in your country. Putin just decided, I don't like the Ukrainians, and I've been trying to conquer them for a while, so I'm just going to start blowing up their buildings and killing their people. See the kind of world we live in, and see, my whole point is, why was an apology necessary? Here it is. because Will Smith came to himself, and whatever else you want to add to that, again, I've watched a lot of videos, read some articles, and everybody's got their, I'm not adding nothing to that. Will Smith, it dawned on him, it ain't just me and Jada Pinkett in this world. It ain't just me and Jada Pinkett and our children in this world. We're not the only ones on this planet. Whether I like what Chris had to say or not, I am not the only husband with a wife who's sick. I'm not the only black man married to a black woman. He ain't the only one. And he ain't even the most famous of us. He decided that night that he had a right to do what no one else has a right to do. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why. As a matter of fact, some are suggesting even more than an apology. And I just got through reading an article before getting on here that the producer of that show said the LA police were waiting in the wings to take that man to jail. And some of you absolutely adore Will Smith. And he was on his way to jail because if Gabe slaps the subway worker because he doesn't like what the subway worker is saying, I would have been arrested and I would have been taken to jail. And you all know it. And nobody would have got on there talking about, well, Gabe is standing up for, and wait, let me add this. And if I was married and if she was black, and if the person working behind the counter didn't quite get her order the way she wanted, and she got mad, and I was seeing her be upset. Baby, why you mad? Because look at how he made my sandwich. And I accosted that man, and I cussed that man out. They should call the police on me, and they should arrest me. I am not afforded the right to assault somebody because my wife is unhappy. What kind of madness is that? That's crazy. And anybody who thinks that that makes sense, I truly hope you get counseling. Now, you can get off my Facebook page and YouTube page if you like. That's your business. But I done told you now. I don't live in a world where I assume that defending my wife's honor requires me to go and assault a man who didn't have a weapon. He didn't have a weapon. Unless, of course, you're suggesting that Chris Rock is so powerful that when he makes a comment, that his comments stand above all that she feels about herself. That same woman just what yesterday said, I don't give a rip what people say about my head. I'm in a period of healing. Move on with it. He absolutely did, real truth. Absolutely did. I don't think anyone can suggest otherwise. He absolutely did. And the fact is, I don't care if he's black, white, Mexican, if you slap me and the police officers ain't coming, now Chris Rock chose not to press charges. I get that. But if some police officers see you slap me, I hope they're going to say something. I hope they're going to do something. I hope they're going to come and, hey, something, anything. In this country, that's illegal. The man performed an illegal act, and y'all up here, oh, he protected his wife. She was not in danger. The word protection suggests she was in danger. God, do you understand when you use the word protect, you mean she's in danger? If I protect my son, I'm protecting him from a dangerous situation. Even if it's a psychological danger. She was well enough, despite her sickness, to go to the Oscars to support her husband. She was well enough to be able to sit there for 3, 4, 5 hours and support her husband. And outside of a frown on her face, she smiled. Well, Gabe, she's an actress. I don't care. She smiled the whole time. Because she is a professional. Chris Rock is a professional. You know what you do with that? You let that pass. Chris was doing his job. You let it pass. Gabe, would you have let it pass? Absolutely. And I would have looked at my wife and said, honey, you know, and she would have, if me and my wife know each other the way we know each other, then, well, you know, then she should be able to know. Now, look, I don't want to get into this, but what's the real reality? And I'm only going to bring it up because it's public. The fact is, this is what's true. That's the truth. And everybody knows it. Now, everybody knows that more than she had a particular illness. The fact is, now we understand there's an open marriage. The fact is, this man has been apologizing. If you're paying any attention, Will Smith has been apologizing to his wife for the last 10 years. I remember when they were on Oprah Winfrey, and I don't even watch Oprah, but I so happened to catch that pieces of that episode and the comments, and I don't even want to rehash them, but the comments she made about her husband and why she gave herself permission to do the things she did. Now, Gabe, but they weren't together at the time. And she was going through it. See, if you want me to defend you as a woman or as a black woman on the basis of what you're going through, then you're going to have to tell me all your business. And I don't think you're ready to do that. See, you can't play it both ways, ladies. You can't go, well, y'all should defend us. But wait a minute, don't defend me. I'm stronger than you. I can do anything a man can do. Okay, I'm confused. Okay, on one hand, men ought to be chivalrous. I told you it was coming. Men ought to be chivalrous, and we ought to stand for women and protect them against all things, which would include themselves, because women can be as much a danger to themselves as anyone. And when you are talking to someone as young as your son and spending time with this gentleman as young as your son, you strike me as someone who might be a danger to yourself. And yet Will was sitting there crying, and I don't got no words to say about a brother crying, because I'll drop a tear in a minute. I ain't lying. I'll drop a tear in a minute. The reality of it is that brother was broken in pieces behind his wife saying, basically, all this is your fault. That's what she said. Tell me she didn't say it. Tell me she didn't say it. She basically made it known to the world, the reason why I spent my entanglement time is because my husband and my life, and I was tired of living this facade. That same man who looked over, who's been trying to redeem himself for whoever knows how long, looks over and sees his wife and is still playing redemption. Now, having been in a marriage, broken, and I'm not here to get into my own life, but I was in a marriage many years ago, broken, toe up from the flow up. And I might not have been as broken because I wasn't as I'm not nowhere near as public as Will Smith, but take it from me, I know what it is to have somebody manipulating them as a man. And I'm saying this, and I'm being transparent. A man being manipulated and drug around, trying to make the marriage work. Many years ago now, many. So if you want to know my personal opinion, even though he's the Will Smith, that's what I see. Now that's just Gabe talking. I see a man who is broken, who is desperately trying to maintain, and it is extremely difficult to do. And he wanted to make a public statement. He wanted to make a public statement, but the problem is, Will, you decided that no one else existed for all of, what was that, about a 2-minute window. And ladies and gentlemen, in this world, we cannot do that. If I get married again, I promise you, I will defend, I will protect my wife. But let me also be clear. If she creates situations and circumstances that bind my hands, I will love her and tell her the truth. Sweetheart, you're making it hard for me to be able to protect you. I am not God. I am not Superman. I am not invincible. And every man out there who's listening to me, let me help you, my brothers. I don't care what your nationality is, you my brothers right now. If you are in a situation where you feel like every little response, your wife, your fiance, your girlfriend, or whatever you want to say, whatever you call her, every little thing that makes her unhappy, you have to go and fix the world, brother, run right now. I'm begging you, get out of there. As a matter of fact, women, I'm gonna throw you in there too. If you feel like your husband's ego is so fragile, is so tender, and I don't mean because he's gone through a particular situation. No, I mean just the whole time you've been there. Now, if you're married, I'm not saying leave your marriage, but he might need some counseling. And it may be time you use whatever influence you feel like you have, because that brother might really need some counseling. If he's so on edge that he can't have nobody breathe in his direction, she's so sensitive. And I'm not being disrespectful about her sickness, but look at the history of this couple. Unfortunately, their history is public. And by their own doing, it's called the red table. They put their history out there. Here's a name for you, Tupac Shakur. How do I know that name? Go and look it up. Jada Pinkett, Tupac Shakur. How do I know that name? And I don't even follow him. How do I know that name? How do I know it? Because they put their business in the streets. And I was raised, you don't do that. And ladies and gentlemen, why should Will Smith have apologized and did, whether you agree with the manner in which he did? Because here's my most salient point. An apology is not about what somebody else did. I don't understand why that's so hard to get. If a person apologizes, it's because they did something wrong. Assault is illegal and therefore wrong. Second of all, he did it right there in the midst of that broadcast with 15 million people watching, potentially including children. I'm gonna go one more step, including African-American children, to whom he considers himself having raised children to be a role model, at least at times. Now, Chris Rock ain't never presented himself as a role model. See, the one thing about this that makes this so crystal clear to me is Chris Rock. Because Chris Rock has never tried to present himself as anything other Chris Rock. I can see if Chris Rock was Hollywood in his comedy. I can see if Chris Rock was one of those game players. He's just not. That's why a lot of people don't like him. But that's also why a lot of people love him. Paul Mooney, another guy, God rest his soul. See, Chris Rock is just what he is. He's just what he is, period. It's Will Smith who has this cross-cultural appeal. Cross-culture ethnically, cross-cultural demographically in terms of economics and all those things. It's Will Smith, which is why he has an Academy Award, which whether you would like it or not, he may very well lose. No, I've heard that too, that if they think it was scripted, and I just don't think so. I really don't. And the reason why I say it, look at the moment. He's laughing. He looks at his wife and sees her displeasure, and he changed his whole mood. How do you script that? Now, I know they're actors, don't get me wrong. He changed his whole mood. And by the way, for any of you who know a little bit about the streets, I'm not a person who was on the streets, but I know a little bit about the streets. If you want to know why he slapped him, because a slap, an open-handed slap is a sign of disrespect. If a man punches a man, that's just being mean. But when he slapped him, and I'm not going to use the phrase, he B-slapped it. And you can fill in the blank. You know what a B-slap is. So when he slapped him with an open hand and walked away, that was purely meant to be a statement of superiority and disrespect. Period. Now, if you don't know street code, you might not know that. I often tell people, and I won't get into my life here, that I have never been slapped. I've been punched, but I've never been slapped. Why do I make that notation? The very same reason why Will Smith slapped him instead of punching him. It's still assault, by the way. It's still against the law, and he still should have been arrested. You cannot put your hands on people. Now, I don't know if Will Smith was ever taught this, but I was. So I don't make a habit, even when people cut me off, even when people cuss me out, even when people assault me in terms of on and on and on and on, I don't look to put my hands on anyone. Now, will I defend my son? Yes. Will I defend? And unfortunately, Heather, I hate to admit that I agree with that one. People do say Will Smith is like a puppet and to Jada, and I'm based on what I know a little bit about psychology and what I've seen with him and what my own history is, I've already shared. Yeah, I know what it is to be a broken man, not to his degree, because again, I'm not that famous, but I know what it is to be ripped to shreds and then have to be public. I've been in the public my entire life. Not famous, but I've been in the public my entire life, and I have many times behind the scenes when I was being ripped to shreds and then standing in front of the public and putting on a face. That's my life. It's my life. And as D.L. Hughley said, another one of those comedians, he said, man, ain't nobody standing up there crying the way Will Smith did unless there is history there. He said, what y'all saw was history. And I absolutely, positively agree. Have you ever had a conversation, and I'm done, ever had a conversation with somebody and they're, you know, how are things going? Oh, I'm okay. And you talk a little bit because you can tell something ain't right. And they go, well, you know, today wasn't a good day. You know, I broke a nail, or, you know, I lost my wallet. And then they break down and cry. And you sitting there going, you're crying over losing a wallet? I mean, I don't mean to be insensitive, but, you know, people lose their wallets. See where I'm going with this? He slapped him over a joke about his wife's head. See where I'm going with this? Do you understand? That ain't got nothing to do with that. Do you see my point? He didn't slap Chris Rock because Chris Rock's joke. He laughed. He slapped Chris Rock because of him and Jada's relationship. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Period. That wasn't about defending his wife's honor. She's in the business. She knows how it goes. That was about that situation. That was about that situation, period. And I mean that relationship situation. That's exactly what it's about. That's exactly what it's about. And you want me to prove it? You know who solidifies it for me? His name is Jaden Smith. You know what Jaden Smith said on Twitter, which I told you earlier I'm not on? That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Jaden Smith, what, 20, 21, 22 maybe years old, if that old, literally tweeted, we assault people. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we do. Jaden Smith communicated to the world. He's a famous actor himself. I don't know about the music stuff, but he's a famous actor himself. And he said, that's what we do. His father apologized moments later when he got his award and then sent a tweet or Instagram to Chris Rock, directed at Chris, to apologize. But his son said that very night, watching the Oscars, that's what we do. Gabe, what's your point? Jaden told us what it was really like to be in that household, raised by that family. Jaden Smith revealed that's what it's really like. We don't, but unfortunately for them, Heather, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's called The Red Table. And they talk pretty much about themselves. We know, having peeked at a red table briefly, and it kind of turned my stomach, so I turned it, that the doctor, that the daughter, what do they call it, Pelagio, whatever it is, she's into open relationships, and her grandmother kind of looked at her. And I was raised in a household with a black woman. I knew that look on grandma's face was, what? And Jada was like, yeah, okay. They are putting their business. I'm sorry. This particular family, you can't, if you say the Obamas, I don't know what goes on behind their closed doors because they ain't got no red table. But the Smiths have a red table. And guess what? They put their business in the streets. They do. So we can't say in this instance, we don't know, because we do know. And if we want to know, we can know. It's there for us to know. Sorry, but not sorry. Now, I'm not up here to talk about what goes on in their house. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about the whole entanglement necessarily. What I'm telling you is these people are famous. They've been in the business, both of them, at least 30 years, at least. Matter of fact, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came on, I think I was still in high school. So that's over 30 years they've been in the business. And his first movie, most of y'all haven't seen, extremely young man. He's been in the business 30 plus years. And I believe so has she. They are not new to this world, ladies and gentlemen. This ain't nothing new. Insult Comics, have anyone ever heard of what they call roasts? They don't roast people like you and I. They roast famous people, where they sit there and Insult Comics take shots at everything. Let me make that point again. Insult Comics like Chris Rock and Wanda Sykes and Bob Saget, God rest his soul. These people come and insult famous people. Famous people do nothing but insult famous people. That's literally what they do. So now that's not a world I know of. So I can't speak to that world. I'm here to talk about why it was necessary for that apology to happen. And unfortunately, I actually like Will Smith's career. I don't know nothing about the man. I actually liked his music because I'm not into hardcore rap. I liked his music. Summertime. Get jiggy with it. Going to Miami. I'm a fan of Bad Boys 1, 2, and 3, etc. Independence Day. I don't know about Independence Day 2, but Independence Day. Okay? So understand, I'm actually a fan. I'm familiar with her career, but I don't really know it. I've watched some of the movies that she's been in, but it's neither here or there. Girls Trip was probably the last one I've seen. I don't know if she's done anything else since then. So understand, again, the man working behind the counter at Subway. I don't have to know his life. Give me my sandwich, my brother, and we good. Don't spit in my food. Don't drop nothing on the floor, and we good. And we good. Now, you might not be looking like I want you to look, but just give me my food. Chris Rock, give me what they pay you for. He did. He got slapped for it. He got slapped for it. He got slapped for doing his job. And let me ask you this final question as we close. Do you want someone to slap you for doing your job? Because they don't like some aspect of your job. Do you want someone to assault you for doing your job because they don't like some aspect of your job? An apology is the least of it for me. I got bit by a dog in the line of duty. You got to understand, the dog attacked me, and the dog was processed and handled accordingly. Now, I didn't press charges. I could have pressed charges. Yes, people have asked me, did I press charges? No, because I was bitten by the dog, not on the basis of my client, who, by the way, is schizophrenic. So I didn't blame the client for the dog's behavior. Animal control came out, dealt with the dog. Apparently the dog doesn't have any kind of rabies and issues because the quarantine is over. I'm good. I'm done. That being said, I could have pressed charges. I did not. Now I got 2 wounds, puncture wounds on my leg. I don't know if Chris Rock has busted gums. I don't know if he had broken teeth. He could have some actual medical issues. We're not even thinking about it. I don't think anybody's even asked. Now, he did a show in Boston the other night, yesterday, day before, I can't remember. Apparently he was okay enough to do his show. And when they asked him, when he got on the stage, he said, look, I'm just processing what happened over the weekend. And he said, I'll have something to say later. And I respect the man. I may or may not like his comedy, but I respect the man was at work, doing his job, and he got attacked. And that, my friends, even in the United States of America, with all the freedoms we have, we do not have the freedom to assault someone doing their job, even if it's a job we don't like. We don't have permission in this country to assault someone doing their job, even if it's a job we don't like, or they're doing it in a way we don't exactly like. Because you know what really he should have done? He should have brought issue up with the people, watch this, who hired him. Think about it. His issue was with the people who hired him, because he knows Chris Rock at least well enough. I wouldn't say they're friends, especially after now, but he knows Chris Rock well enough to know exactly what kind of comedy Chris Rock does. He's been to enough Oscar ceremonies in 30 years to know exactly why they hire Wanda Sykes, Chris Rock, Whoopi Goldberg, etc. You're not asking those comedians to get up and play nice. You're asking those comedians to take shots at the audience, which is exactly what Chris Rock did. And when I was watching the shows later on that evening, or actually during the week, over the last few days, the shows were taking shots at all of them. Because that's what comedians do. And if you don't like comedy, this ain't gonna affect you. But for those of us who like comedy, and I don't mean just comedy movies, who like stand-up comedy, understand this genre of comedy is not going anywhere. It ain't going nowhere. Because as I believe somebody said a little earlier, Chris Rock went from skyrocketed from 50-ish to over $300. So Chris Rock is a marketing genius. Do not say anything about that situation until you are ready. Be crafted in what you say and let the money roll in. Which is why some people want to say, oh, he did that. Yes, he told his jokes on purpose. He intended to tell those jokes. Now, it is said that particular joke wasn't actually in the script. But Chris Rock is a stand-up comedian who can come off the top. I've seen him do it just in interviews. He's off the top of the dome, as they say. So I'm not surprised he wasn't able to come off the dome. He saw it. He commented, he moved on. Notice, he moved on. Saw it, commented, moved. That's exactly what comedians do. It's called timing. So I'm not here to defend Chris Rock other than the fact that when I'm doing my job, as I've already told you, I got assaulted by a dog now for a week and a half ago. When I'm doing my job, I'm not looking for people to assault me. You don't have to call a manager, because isn't that what we really do? Isn't that what we do when we're offended by a waiter? We don't get up and punch the waiter in the face. When we feel like we've been mistreated in a restaurant, we don't punch the people who work there. We call for managers. We might raise our voices. I worked in the school system. We don't start punching teachers because we don't think that they are handling situations. We go to the principal. We go to the school. There are methods and ways. What is your moral compass? What does your moral compass say? Because if Chris Rock would have punched Jada Pinkett in the face, that all means if I would have been there, me and Will Smith would have wailed on Chris Rock until we were tired. If he would have physically assaulted Jada Pinkett Smith, he would have had it coming, and no one would be talking about charges at all. He spoke words, he moved on, he got assaulted. Let that permeate your mind as we close. If you like or dislike, agree or disagree, share this out. Have conversation around it. Get people talking. Again, an apology was merited because he did something wrong. Plain, simple. Don't tell me about Chris Rock. Don't tell me about the Academy. Will Smith broke the law. He was required within himself to apologize. And our moral compass should drive us to do that. And let me address this. I just got reminded. Sorry, in overtime, but let me say this quickly. To Mr. Denzel Washington, who's not going to hear this, unless somebody's got an inside role with him, Denzel Washington said to Will Smith, you know, when you rise, demons come. Let me say to my Christian friends really quick. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Stop saying stuff like that. Now, I don't know what Denzel Washington's biblical understanding is. I know he goes to West Angeles Church of God in Christ in Los Angeles. That's about as much as I know. As far as I know, he is an openly expressive Christian. He believes in Jesus Christ. So I consider him a brother in Christ. Will Smith, on the other hand, I've heard some of his philosophy, and it's definitely not biblical. It's more New Age, but I won't get into that. But let me just say, if there's any Christians watching me right now, what Denzel Washington said to Will Smith is, biblically speaking, inaccurate. Because God is not about trying to get us Oscars. God is not about trying to make us famous. God is not about trying to get us the highest awards, especially when Jesus says, what profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? How in the world, Mr. Washington, if you know your scripture, do you suggest that it was God who put Will Smith on that level and the devil trying to bring him down? If you ask me, it was the devil all the way through. Because I don't get the feeling that Chris Rock, and I'm being very careful here, I've heard nothing from him that suggests that he is professing to be a believer. His comedy definitely does not suggest that. Now, I know that's his job, but his comedy does not suggest that. Because he'll poke fun at Christians in a minute as well. So understand, Chris Rock had no desire to try to be nice to anybody, because he wasn't paid to be, and Will Smith did not represent God in any way, even if he is a believer. That has nothing to do with Satan trying to tempt him. You got to understand your Bible, Christians, before you start trying to tell somebody that everything is the devil. No, whether you want to admit it or not, all of us have in us the ability to do stupid, illegal things, period. And we need to stop blaming the devil when we know we're doing something. And if you don't think that was calculated, look at the darn video. He sat there, he thought it through, he walked 35 paces. He had plenty of opportunity to cease and desist. He did not choose to punch him. He intentionally chose to slap him. Do not blame the devil. Oh, I get it. All evil ultimately is laid at the devil's feet. I get what you're trying to say, but understand, that ain't the devil made me do it. Is that Robert Harris? Another comedian. I believe that's Robert Harris. The devil made me do it. No, that was Will Smith. Extraordinarily calculated and in light of defending his wife. And if you don't think that that's serious, let me tell you real quickly about a man by the name of Martin Luther King. His wife, and I believe he had 4 children at that point, and 4 children were in his home, and the home was bombed. Coretta Scott King says, we so happened to be in the back room when the bomb hit the front room. His wife and children were in the house when his house was attacked by bomb. And yes, that man was lit based on what she said. And she talked to her. That's a whole nother broadcast. She talked to her husband, and Martin Luther King did not pick up a gun and go seek out the people who blew up, who attempted to blow up his family and his home. So don't tell me about a comment made by a comedian when a man's wife and his children, while he was away speaking up for African-American people who almost got blown to bits. He almost lost his entire family. And yet that man did not seek vengeance. Don't tell me that Will Smith was justified. Because if that's the case, Martin Luther King should have got him as big a gun as he could have found and sought those people out and blew them sky high. And what would you say about him if he had? I'm done. Tough subject, but I hope it helps you to at least think. Have a good night.